Welcome to Identity Unboxed, where we provide mentorship and promote representation for Black professionals in the advancement of the Black community.
We are seeking guidance from exceptional Black leaders, scholars, and professionals with expertise in their respective fields.
We hope to foster a space that promotes authenticity, inclusivity, and restoration for our listeners while exploring the intersection of our personal and professional lives.
This project is a culmination of our lived experiences as young Black professionals to transform our life trajectories, to overcome adversity, and reach triumph.
Our intention is to inspire you on your path to discovering your purpose.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Senator Nobles, on Identity Unboxed. Our episode today is called More Than a Statistic, a Path Rooted in Resilience, because from what we've seen, you've shown that throughout your career and throughout your entire life, and we're just grateful to have you here today. So thank you for giving your time.
Thank you all for having me, and thanks for just using your incredible platform to allow folks to share their story.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So in November of 2020, you were elected to the Washington State Senate, representing the 28th Legislative District, clinching the race with 50.61% of the vote. This victory made you the first Black senator to serve in Washington State in over a decade. Can you share what inspired your decision to run for elected office and what initially sparked your interest in public service?
Yeah, definitely what sparked my interest in public service was a lot of my lived experience. For people who are a little bit familiar with my story, I experienced foster care and experienced homelessness as a child, but spent so many years trying to overcome a lot of systemic barriers and family challenges. And I knew that one day I wanted to be someone in my community who could help others to overcome similar challenges. When I experienced foster care, my foster father was a city council member, a pastor, and a trained engineer. And I think seeing him model his leadership really inspired me. And I remember freshman year of high school, I was thinking one day I would love to serve my community in that way. I would love to continue to develop my leadership skills, allow my community to choose me if they see me as someone that's fit to be a spokesperson and representative for them. But I felt like that was a goal that I wanted to have for myself. And I think my motivation has been a deep desire to see that others have access to opportunity, to make sure that communities and young people are safe. I experienced so many just unsafe and unstable situations as a young person, and I just want to see a difference for current and future generations. And then also, I want to make sure that folks have access to education. I think my education was a real game changer. And when I decided to run for state senate, it was really a call for my community. And I had been asked for a couple of years to consider running for the seat or challenging the incumbent, and I was not always prepared to do so. And then I had an incredible experience in a leadership program I participated in with American Leadership Forum, and something about the way that it developed, like further developed my confidence and my clear vision of the way that my community supported me and needed me to step up at that time. And so I felt ready. But then also, I had run for school board and had been serving on the school board. I was a nonprofit leader already and could clearly see gaps in policy solutions and felt like I could bring a voice for folks who sometimes are marginalized or just underrepresented, and see myself in a position of not only decision making, but in a position of power to help my community to move forward. And I just feel blessed every day to be able to do this work.
That is so amazing. And I love hearing that you used your lived experience to inform your career path. And I know you mentioned your foster father was a huge, influence on your life. And did you have any other mentors through your journey up until now that really impacted you or helped you get to where you are today? I imagine, you coming from the foster care system, it was probably a very arduous journey. So if you could dive into that a little bit more, I think it'd be helpful for our listeners about who helped you and how you overcame some challenges that you encountered.
So many people. Usually when I tell my story, I summarize it as teachers, coaches, and that's the truth. I had two incredible math teachers who were both Deltas, and they really influenced my decision to join Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and to become an educator. I mean, that is why I wanted to pursue a Master of Arts in Teaching. Coaches who would drive me to practice. I mean, in the midst of having a parent who was struggling with a substance use disorder and did not even realize I was competing as an athlete in high school, my coaches would pick me up and make sure I was there and make sure I made it to track meets and all, and also I feel like we don't always give credit to peer-to-peer mentoring. We always usually think of like someone older, but my peers, I mean, my friends through middle school and high school really held it down for me and were great support and mentors for me. I remember simple things like picture day. I never had money for picture day. And especially before we entered the foster care system. And my friends would pay for my pictures because we could do group pictures back when I was in school. You could do like your individual pictures, but we got to do group pictures. My friends would like get the coordinating outfits for me because I never had money as a kid to pay for those outfits. So a lot of peer-to-peer mentoring, my teachers, my coaches. And then when I lived in several shelters, there were a couple in particular that had Black women CEOs. And I think they really inspired my desire to become a nonprofit CEO, like to be a leader, yes, but to lead work that is providing a service to community and helping to meet the need of community and helping people really to transition out of one circumstance into a better circumstance. So I feel really grateful for those individuals. And then as that was mostly in Alabama when I lived in Alabama and in Georgia. When I became an adult and moved to the Pacific Northwest, especially when I think about my political career, folks like Mayor Victoria Woodards, Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland. I mean, watching them serve as park board leaders, city council members, mayors, and then continue to move up really allowed me to see not only the steps of how to run a campaign and how to serve in a community, but just see an option. We're all very different leaders, but it has been tremendously beneficial to me to have Black women serve in positions that have been unique for them and to watch them navigate challenges, to watch them navigate discrimination and racism and lack of belief and unfair judgment and to be upheld to just untrue stereotypes. I knew what would lie ahead. And I also got to see the strength required to overcome even those challenges and be successful. So I'm grateful for my peer mentors and grateful for the women who I wouldn't call them elders yet, but who are definitely showing up as good ancestors and role models for individuals like me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so amazing that despite all the challenges and the hardships, it seems like you were really able to lean on community in childhood during those times, and even now you were able to lean into community. And it's so great that now you're serving your own community and those in our state. And I was wondering if in childhood, if you wouldn't mind sharing, was there a specific moment when you were, with your peers or when you were at school and you realized, oh, my life is different. I have more obstacles because of my circumstances and the cards that I was dealt.
Oh, there are multiple situations where I knew my life was different. Even living in shelters, I tried to hide that from like my classmates. Like I would get off my bus really would stop in front of the shelter, but I would get off the bus. This was like in 8th grade or 7th grade. I would get off the bus and go to this like big white house that was on a corner across the street from the shelter to pretend like I lived there. And you can't pretend for too long. And I remember in school, I was a great student, a beautiful young lady, great athlete, and I had a smart mouth. And when I would get into it with people, sometimes they'd be like, "Well, that's why you live in a shelter." And I'm like, okay, like I mean, I wouldn't say okay, we would go back and forth, but I mean, definitely, like I knew my life was different. And even experiencing foster care, I had two foster families. And while I feel very grateful for those families who really like stepped up to support me, and my brothers had different foster families, you always feel different. And they had children, and like, when one foster family, when their children would get cars when they were graduating high school and I didn't, like, you always know that, like, oh, so I'm not really there. It's like, we're kind of like family, but not all the way family. Like, and those things like cut deeply. Like, it feels really painful. I also knew I was different in more nuanced and positive ways. I was a really hard worker in school, and not because I had to give so much effort, but I wanted to make good grades. I always felt like I was rooted in my faith in God from elementary school, and I would get my brothers up, get us on a little like church bus, or one of them that would come through the neighborhood and take me and my brothers to church. In elementary school, when we lived in shelters, a lot of shelters have a religious component, typically Christian. And so we, lived in those shelters, but also spent a lot of time in church or chapel through those shelter experiences. And so I felt from a very young age that if I could be clear on my vision and stay close to God, I could make it to what I could see for myself. I saw myself as this woman in my community. I saw myself as a mom that created better opportunities for my kids. And bless my mom, she did the best that she could. And my dad was just not in the picture consistently. But I could see the woman that I am today. And I knew that I just needed to stay very focused and like stay out of trouble and try my best, because I felt like there was a different type of destiny for me, even with all of the statistics that say, because of this, you won't be anything. Because of this, you won't achieve it. I felt like there was a different, I mean, not to be super religious sounding, but like I felt like there was a different anointing on my life. And I just needed to do my part, which was stay focused and keep moving forward. So yeah, I could feel the negativity, but I also realized I was a child. I didn't do anything wrong. I was a product of my environment. The adults in my life were making these decisions. And I knew I was a good person and a good athlete and a good student, and I was going to keep moving forward. But I always felt that interesting dichotomy of like, I'm different, but like also different in a very good way. Like, I'm going places.
Wow, yeah, I really appreciate you opening up so much. And it's just so inspiring to hear how you were able to transform all of that adversity you experienced into something positive. And it really sounds like you understood your capabilities early on. Even if you were facing a lot of systemic barriers, you didn't let that become a personal failing. Like you had said, your parents had made decisions. You were not the one, who had gotten yourself into the situation you were in, right? And so that doesn't have to be your story, and you were able to transcend your circumstances. And I think it's really, helpful for our listeners to hear that if there's stigmas around being in the foster care system, living in poverty, not having what your peers might have, that you can still get there if you, have hard work, if you, like you said, you're disciplined, you have the resilience, and also you have to lean, on other people. Thank you so much. And then moving forward, not only were you the first Black state senator to serve in over a decade, but you also became the second Black woman to ever serve in the Washington State Senate. Can you speak to any pressures you have faced as a Black woman in elected office, and any barriers you have overcome to lead in this capacity?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely always pressure when you are the first or when you are the only. And I think most of the pressure I probably put onto myself, because I am consistently thinking of, I want to do a really good job. Honestly, the first Black woman senator, who was Senator Rosa Franklin, who represented the 29th legislative district, not far from me. In fact, parts of my district used to be part of her district before redistricting over the years, but she is still an incredible woman. I think she's in her 90s. And she was an incredible leader, and she has such a strong legacy. And so I have someone that I feel very proud of, that I get to admire. And I want to be that person for whoever will be the next Black woman senator, because still to this date, only two of us, we've been the only two Black women to serve in the Washington State Senate. And now there is, as of like a couple of years ago, there is a Black man, Senator Lubbock, who's in the Senate, and he came over from the House. But Washington State has two Black members in the Senate. As a comparison, the House probably has 10 Black members. So it seems to be a bit more of a challenge in the Senate, primarily because our term is longer and senators tend to stick around a little bit longer. So it's harder for someone's seat to open up and to see that transition. But I want to be a good example for whoever comes next. And I want them to be able to see my work and feel like when people say you're the third, that they're attached to a legacy that they can feel proud of. And they're not trying to, they don't have to feel like, oh, I must do better, or she screwed everything up. Like I need to really, like, the pressure's on. I want them to feel like, no, we have a good thing going. And that's how I feel because of Senator Rosa Franklin's legacy. And then definitely there is a hostility in politics that is even more when you are a member of a community of color. That's even more when you are a woman. And so definitely I feel like hatred and racism and sexism and just even running for office, the types of stories that um, opposition will try to tell, which have nothing to do with me, but have more to do with like racist tropes that they have when it comes to telling stories about Black people, right? Always trying to criminalize us. And again, thinking back to when I was a child, I knew the woman that I wanted to be. I had an idea that maybe one day I would want to run for office. And so I there aren't things that are even true, about me that people can try to attach to, like, see, this is what Black people do. And it's like, no, Black people are brilliant. Black people are educated. Black people, like, I get to be a person that I feel proud of. And I get to be a person that there aren't things that they can just say, like, see, she has a criminal record. No, actually, that's not the story of Black people. Like, you can keep trying to do that, but nope, I'm just a good human in my community trying to do something good. But you just consistently have to, like, keep your head up high and know that scrutiny is going to come your way and is deeply rooted in anti-Blackness. But I'm confident in who I am. I've been working to become this woman for a very long time, and like that, those type of barriers are not going to stop me. And I think the other thing that I've tried to do, considering there have only been two of us, is really, try to be supportive, or at least accept conversations or meetings sometimes of young women who are interested in politics, or try to invite people to work on my team, like campaign team or legislative team, just to try to open up more doors for people of color. But I think when you are the first or when you are the only, the best thing that you can do is show up as your authentic self. And, I went to a predominantly white institution for college. I attended the University of Puget Sound. And so I am familiar with being able to be successful and be yourself and not have to feel like you have to assimilate in an institution or environment that does not overwhelmingly look like you or disproportionately does not look like you. I belong in this space. I worked hard to be in this space. My community deserves for me to be in this space. So whether I'm the first or the only, I feel deserving. I feel prepared. I still also feel things like insecurity because I'm human. When I have to give a big talk or speak about a bill or prepare for podcasts, like I want to do a good job. Like I'm a human. So I do have the nerves and anxiousness and uncertainty, but not imposter syndrome. I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and life is filled with challenges. So I will always experience barriers, whether it's because of just life or my sex or my race. Those things will come my way. And I just feel like absolutely with community and support and my confidence in myself, I can feel prepared. And even if I feel blindsided and not prepared, I know that I will overcome them. I've been through much harder things in life. So the pressure is on, but I feel like Black women can do amazing things. And I have a goal to be a really good ancestor. So I have to keep moving forward, right? I have to keep setting the example and showing what power looks like.
That is so valuable. And it's so fantastic to hear how, even though you had confronted a lot of those stereotypes and scrutiny, that you didn't allow that to deter you. And like you said, you just knew who you were and that you knew you were going to make it, even if folks try to put those limitations on you. And you spoke about how you didn't allow like imposter syndrome to interfere with your goals, because I think that's often something that is assigned to women, especially women of color. And I don't myself ascribe to, the imposter syndrome ideology, because I just don't think that it actually speaks to our experiences. I think if we've made it through these systems that are actually meant to keep us down and we're able to overcome, then it's clearly that we're more qualified than potentially our peers in those spaces. And we've had so much more work that we've put in. I just appreciate that you spoke to that. And I was hoping you'd be able to talk more about how you did develop that confidence, because I know you mentioned that you were able to find that early on, like in high school and through your athletics and things. But as you continued to move up, I bet, you felt the nerves, like you said, you're still human. And so how were you able to continue to like cultivate that when you felt like, I don't know if I should be here or not?
Yeah. The easiest way that I can say it is I learned to do it through practice. Public speaking always makes me nervous. I don't shy away from the challenge. I continue to practice it. I continue to do it. When people ask me, how do you balance, being a mom and working and doing these things? I literally have been practicing this since I was a child. Now, then I didn't choose it, but I was a caretaker for my brothers if my mom was out, on a binge because of her substance use disorder. And I was left as a child with my siblings. I had to feed them and get them off to school. Um, I started working any under the table job. Like I remember I worked at this car detailing place and a guy would like give us some dollars, or um I tried to make money at an early age. So like managing a job is nothing new. Doing well in school, my work ethic was very clear as a student. It continued when I was in college. It continues as a professional. So practice is how you do it. If you want to know how you can overcome challenges and feel confident, practice being confident, practice affirming yourself. Surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up. Stick with it when you are experiencing challenges. Like you cannot give up. You have to practice crying it out if you need to, taking some deep breaths, and then getting right back up and continuing to do the work. But I just feel like even to this day, it is a continued practice, and I just try to get better. And I can say, well, I didn't like how I handled that situation. I want to change how I handle future situations. So it's just practicing and modifying so that I can continue to become a better, more confident person or mom or employee or community member. But it definitely does not happen. And sometimes I've been real intentional because of my brokenness and pain and abandonment as a child. I was not really open to friendships and new people, especially when I was younger and even when I first started college. And I would kind of push people away and say things like, "You're not my friend, like we're associates," or just rude, mean stuff because I was scared. But I had to come to that realization. And then I told myself, I don't want to be that type of person. And so I had to practice being more kind, I had to practice being more open and saying yes to invitations. I had to practice opening up my heart and being available to people. So these things don't just happen. Like you have to put in the effort, you have to set the goals, you have to write it down or journal, and then practice. And just like anything else, you practice like, I made a mistake. That wasn't perfect. I hated that version of it. And you just continue to refine it and move forward. But I'm definitely not looking for perfection, but I am just in a constant practice around most things that I do.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for being vulnerable. And your experience is so valuable, and it's so easy for our childhood trauma to really impact how we navigate the world and relationships. And I think it's really a testament to your strength to see where you were and what you've been through and how you're able to self-reflect and be like, hey, maybe, maybe some things that I've been through are impacting the way I navigate relationships in my life, both personally and professionally. And it's just amazing to hear about your growth and to see all that you've overcame. And I was wondering if you could take us back to when you decided to run. What was going through your mind? What was that process like being in the public eye? As a Black woman, you're going to be increasingly visible. Eyes are on you. You're going to hear the racist tropes. You're going to deal with the misogyny. Like, what was going through your head, and how did you stay strong during that process? And what was it like when you won?
Good question. And so I I believe you're asking me about running for state senate, but I think it's important to also mention running for school board. And the first two times I ran for school board, I was unopposed, but I was very prepared and I still ran kind of, serious campaigns, raised money, knocked on some doors, and just didn't overdo it because resources should go to other people. But even then, I just felt like my goal is to serve my community. I want to focus on education. And then when it came to state senate, that was an interesting year. So I mentioned I was in the middle or partway through the leadership program with American Leadership Forum, but this was 2020. So February of 2020, there was a particular incident that happened with the incumbent senator at that time, that also triggered, like, you know what, I'm going to do this in addition to my community asking me. But my thought process once we launched was very interesting because February is when I started feeling like, maybe. A couple weeks later in March is when we announced, and that's late for big, serious campaigns. Typically, people, if you're going to challenge a two-term incumbent, you announce like the year before, like maybe like right after the election, maybe the year before, or even earlier. Some people start running like one full year in advance. So I'm like, in the current year, we announce in March. Now there's this like increased talk about COVID. Now we're on a stay-at-home order. And now we come to the realization that we're not going to be able to get out there and talk to my neighbors because we have to stay home. And everybody knows, in order to win a race, you have to get on the doors and introduce yourself. And like, I'm challenging a two-term incumbent that's, has a reputation of being well liked. And I just have been told I cannot knock on doors. So for a split second, I was like, no, this is political suicide. Because a lot of people were like, don't do it. He's well liked. Don't do it. You won't win this race. Even people who have been longtime supporters, not a whole lot of them, but there were a couple who were like, why don't you choose an easier race? Like, why would you? And I'm like, because this is what my community is calling me to do. We have enough data and information about winnability, and this is what we're going to do. But then I had that moment of like, oh no, I might have just like ruined this for myself. But we had a quick pivot and we were like, no, you know what this is gonna be about? And some of this came from my day job at Tacoma Urban League too. This is going to be about meeting community where it is. People are unsure, they're uncertain, people need masks, they need groceries, they need support, people are losing their jobs. So this is not about, hey, this is what you can do for me, I need your support. This is about, hey, we're in a crisis together as a community, how can I support you? And so I think even with all the negativity spiraling, we were on a mission to support community. And I think that is what leaders are good at. Like right now in my work, I have this theme, leaders meet the moment. And that was the right thing to do in that moment as a leader. You need to respond. It's not a selfishly, I need you to do this for me because I have to win. Absolutely not. Regardless of the outcome of this, I'm here to support you. I feel called to this. So a lot of my mentality was wrapped in like supporting community. And I'll tell you, there were a couple of times on that campaign where I told my team, I don't need to do this. Like, I'll absolutely quit. Because there are moments, especially that year, because not only was it the pandemic, it was a murder of George Floyd. And I'm an urban league leader. And I needed to be a strong voice for my community. And I needed to be a strong voice for police accountability, in addition to all of the like health and well-being messages and support that was needed. And then there's like all this political stuff where people are like trash talking. And like, naturally, I told you all, even as a kid, I have a mouth. I will clap back. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm from the hood. Like, what are we doing here? But you have to maintain a certain decorum and focus. When people are saying super hateful things about you, and not just saying it, we're not talking about a whisper, a gossip. We're talking about running cable ads across
That's so
Washington
wild. And like articles too. Like I've seen
and
just,
print.
it's so much drama. Yeah, yeah. And it's
And
lies.
people are like, let's not say anything. Don't crash out. Don't crash out. What?
And then you're like, I'm definitely gonna crash out now.
Right. So I was like, you know what? Fine, I won't crash out, but I'm not gonna do this because like I want to clap back. So it's just I had to practice this muscle of like, my team had to tell me like people don't listen to this. People don't listen to the negativity. You know who you are. You know what's true. Because me speaking up about police accountability because my community needed me to be that leader and it was true. Of course, then they tried to say, "Oh, she wants to defund the police. Oh, she hates." I'm like, my father was law enforcement. I have a cousin that's in law enforcement. I've never said defund them, but it's like you can't chase these narratives. So, like, my mindset was like, you have to stay focused. And I'm human. So, I would sometimes go like this, and my team would be like, no, come right on back. And I would be like, but I come on back. And so, I just had to, thank goodness, I could really only be in my house because I think that also prevented me from just being out in community where people are like, did you hear? Did you see? Girl, they sent the girl, and it's like, I just had to be focused. And there were moments when I was like, forget this. And my team was like, nah, we're in it to win it. And there were a couple times when I was like, don't ask me for anything. Like, I'm done in this moment. And they're like, give the girl a break, give her a couple of days. Nobody say anything, don't ask her for anything. So it is very intense. I mean, it was a big race that was about $1 million. It was, one of the more expensive state legislative races for like challenging an incumbent. So my mind was in so many places, and I just feel very grateful for the team that was around me because I needed to do my day job and be there for a community while run this like super big, like historic race. Um, and the emotions are just like all over, but I can only thank the people who are around me for helping to like shift my mindset of like, nope, you got this, you're okay, everything is okay. And you do what you're supposed to do, and other people will fight those battles. Other people will will correct the narrative or write an op-ed or do, and then some things you just don't chase, some things you just can't worry about. So there's not a simple way to describe what the mentality is or what the feelings are. When I ran for state senate in particular, there were so many interesting pieces and needs, and I feel like I overall did a good job. Obviously we did a good job because now I have this opportunity to serve, but that was really good practice in life on like how to tackle tough things and how to be disciplined and focused in the middle of a pandemic and still maintain your character because I could have went to Twitter and did a bunch of so it's like gosh, it really helped me to mature. And in running for reelection was not as intense, but when you enter partisan politics on state and federal level, it's just a different beast, very different than my experience on school board. But you learn valuable lessons about your tolerance, your boundaries, and what you can achieve if you don't give up.
Thank you so much for that. And that is so relatable because I be crashing out too. I'm not gonna lie. Like I be crashing out. That's something I've had to learn because it's hard sometimes just, hearing what people got to say. And I was wondering if you could give some advice on how to ground yourself or how people can ground themselves when they feel that, within them because I be wanting to get on Twitter too and,
Mhm.
clap back a few times.
And my best advice is one, have some people around you who can support you and also pick and choose. Because the one thing that I love about platforms like Twitter, like TikTok, is there are some times when you need to say something. And I think that's what I love about now because how even elected officials show up, that's more of my natural disposition. Like, hold on now. I didn't say nothing about that, but I'm going to say something about this. And I just feel like life is not about not holding people accountable, but you have to be, I think, measured in your response. I type a lot of things and then I have to like, okay, delete it. Like, okay, like you went too far. Delete it. And then sometimes I just have to push send. But I'll try to loop people in like this is what I'm about to do, especially some big things. Like I have a good team of people where, or sometimes I'll do it and then I'll let them know, like, just so you know, this is what I just did. This is what I just said. I'm not asking for permission. I'm just letting you know this is what's out there. So if we need to course correct or like, you know, do
You're
some
like,
damage
prepare.
control.
There's going to be some blowback.
Yeah. But sometimes, especially like the one thing I'm not going to do in an elected position is not say or do what is right because I'm caught up in like, but I want to be reelected. No, Only thing that's guaranteed is this term that I'm in right now. That's what's guaranteed. I am elected now to serve for 4 years. I'm going to do a good job now. I'm not going to be so caught up in trying to withhold on doing what's right because I'm thinking about what's ahead. I'm not saying don't be strategic, of course. But if you're speaking up because what you're saying is the right thing, especially when it comes to the issues that are confronting us now, the violence that is being experienced in Palestine and Gaza, the immigration issues, and the way that ICE is showing up in our community and community members are disappearing, the economy and how important it is to make sure that our community is affordable. People who are bad actors when we're talking about sexual abuse, sexual assault, sexual harassment, discrimination, racism. Like there are a lot of topics where it's like, I could care less if I'm not ever elected again. I'm not going to not speak up for this person or my community or speak up for myself. So I'm not chasing elected position in that way. My goal is to stand up for my community as best as I can. So that is how I balance it. Like, what is, I do, I sometimes I have to take a split second, like, what are the pros? What are the cons? What are the consequences? What's the benefit? And who needs me to speak up right now? And there have been some things recently where it was about me, but it was more so about me having an opportunity to say things that some other people who had been harmed felt like they could not. And I'm like, if people want to be vengeful or seek revenge because I'm doing the right thing, oh well, I'm doing the right thing. I will never, and I have plenty of people. I will protect myself against them, and there are other people who will too. But yeah, I definitely have my moments where like I don't care. We can call it crash out, we can call it speaking up. I'm gonna use my platforms or even in person to just say what needs to be said and also back it up with action to do the things that need to be done.
Exactly. Sometimes you just got to stand on business and say, you know what? I said what I said.
Yeah.
Love it or hate it, I said what I said. And I love that you're able to maintain your authenticity, and just stick to your true self and be that person that's like, you know what? If I see injustice, if I see someone saying something, that's out of pocket, I'm going to speak up, and prepare. But switching gears a little bit, you have dedicated much of your career in public service to uplifting the Black community. You previously served as the president and CEO of the Tacoma Urban League, and you were the inaugural CEO of the Black Future Co-op Fund, an organization focused on helping build generational wealth, health, and well-being for Black people. Based on these experiences, can you discuss the importance of unifying the Black community and strategies you found to be successful?
Yeah. And in addition to being the inaugural CEO of the Black Future Co-op Fund, I'm also a co-founder. I moved to Washington State from Alabama. And I mentioned before I lived in Georgia, I lived in Alabama. I've lived lots of places, but that's where I kind of say I grew up. I say I grew up in the South. That's where I went to middle school and high school. My community was a predominantly Black community. And so my both of my foster families were Black, which we all know statistically that does not happen for so many Black youth who experience foster care. I mentioned, there were two Black teachers at my high school, like 50. Our high school was kind of everything was like 50-50. We didn't have a lot of diversity. It was just really Black and white. So it's like half the teachers were Black, half the teachers were white, half the cheer team needed to be Black, half the cheer team needed to be white. But I grew up with coaches and teachers and like my foster father, city council members who were Black. For my first child back home, my gynecologist was Black. And it's not this like I have to look on like a website to find someone Black. I was surrounded by Black people who were successful, who were in sororities and fraternities. And so I feel very grateful that that was my experience. What I know is the beauty and brilliance that exists in the Black community. And I'm a Black woman. I have Black children. So I feel very proud and want to make sure that I'm serving my community in the same way that, well, not in the same way, but in a similar way to me being a woman. I want to uplift other women. But for sure, when you see me, regardless of how you think I identify, you see the color of my skin. And I want to make sure that as a Black woman, I stand up and represent my community. But I just have been surrounded by so many people who do what I do. Like, I don't like me serving as an urban league leader and co-founding Black Future Co-op Fund is not an anomaly for me. I grew up around people who look like me, who go hard for our community. And we didn't set out to be like, we're doing this for the Black community. We're all Black. We're doing it for the community. Like, so
Well, because no one else will do it too, and that's the thing. It's like if we don't, who was going to step in?
absolutely. And I have
Yeah.
to be honest, our community was fairly segregated. Like our side of town was Black, the other side of town was white. And so absolutely the history of that is we had our own and created our own and nurtured our own. So I grew up around this collective visioning and partnership in community. And just naturally, I'm an adult who is continuing to do the same thing, making sure that I'm helping to center our voices. I want to show up for the needs of our community. And even though at Tacoma Urban League and at Black Future Co-op Fund, we definitely had like relationships across different ethnic and racial groups. But I'm a Black woman. I want to center who I am, and I want to be there to support my community. And so that work, I think of, how am I helping future generations? How am I building, like we would say in Black Future Co-op, generational wealth? How am I creating policies that will help future generations of the Black community? How am I being a part of helping our community to achieve liberation and have the educational outcomes that we want? So I just feel like I'm doing what feels natural to me and what I got to witness and see modeled for me, but also what I know is right. Like being in co-founding Black Future Co-op Fund was what was needed for a community. Being able to create a philanthropic organization that raised money from all types of donors and invested money in the Black community is 100% how you can create generational wealth, how you can help us to prosper in education because we're making those direct investments, how you can impact policy because you're supporting organizations that have a strong advocacy voice or provide training. It doesn't have to be political, but it is definitely advocacy for the policies that we want to see. And then of course, being a part of the Urban League movement, like that was, some of the best years of my life. And we say once an urban leaguer, always an urban leaguer. But stepping into that organization was my first opportunity to serve as a nonprofit leader. I was a classroom teacher at Lincoln High School and got the call from now Mayor Woodard, who was like, I think you should consider being the CEO of the Urban League. And I'm like, how? I literally teach in a high school. How am
You're
I
like, what? That's such a big step.
right? Like, what? um, and had no idea she had that vision. She was like, you've started a business, you serve on the school board, you've done all these things, you're an incredible mother, you ran my campaign, like, yeah, you. And lo and behold, someone created that opportunity, someone provided that mentorship, and I was very successful at doing that work and have been very successful at nonprofit leadership and supporting organizations and building the brand of that organization. But being a part of the Urban League movement, with its historical influence around advocacy and standing up for Black people, it was a good fit for me. It's so deeply connected to who I am and who I want to be. So I mean, the goals are common. And I think that the strategy is we have to work together. And I can't be out here and be so proud to be a Black woman and do nothing for the Black community. Like that's wild to me. And many of us do have jobs in environments that are not predominantly Black, but it is a joy and a privilege to be able to work on behalf of and in my community.
I love that so much. And it's just so beautiful to hear that you were able to really lean into community, but that you also were meeting people where they were. Like you'd mentioned, you couldn't do the door knocking and stuff when you were running for office, but that you were able to meet community where they were. And it sounds like you've been very successful because not only are you honest with yourself and you're true to who you are, but you have people around you that are rallying around you. They see your potential and you'd underestimated yourself for being a CEO, but someone else could already envision you doing that job. And so it sometimes takes those people in our corner pushing us to pursue those opportunities. And I'm sure it's, very rewarding to have those people around you that can see you grow. But moving just a little bit, kind of back more to your childhood, but if you could speak to some of the challenges that you had experienced and share words of wisdom. But before that, according to the National Black Women's Justice Institute, Black girls make up 23% of the foster care population, while only comprising 13% of the general population. By age 21, nearly 25% of Black girls who aged out of foster care reported at least one experience of incarceration, determined to become more than a statistic. You dedicated your time and energy into overcoming the cards you were dealt, as a result, you earned your high school diploma and went on to earn your master's in teaching from the University of Puget Sound, which you already kind of dove into. Can you share how you uncovered perseverance on your journey, share any words of wisdom that you have for Black youth, and then also discuss a little bit more about how your lens has informed your policy as well? I think you really have spoken about how your vantage point has given you a unique opportunity to be able to make an impact in your community and connect with people in ways that some other elected officials can't, that don't represent our identity. So if you could dive into that, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, I definitely would give the advice that our past does not have to dictate our future, especially when we talk about childhood trauma. And I say this often when I have conversations around resiliency and overcoming barriers, that at some point, you have to recognize that you're not a child anymore and you're in control, and you can start making different decisions, even if you need support and help through therapy or other resources. At some point, like, I had to say, like, I'm not a child. Like, I could blame everything, like, oh, this person did this. Oh, I lived here. Oh, I didn't have this, which I actually didn't. Like I said, from a very young age, I was just focused. I knew I was going somewhere. And I didn't know those statistics when I was a child. I don't feel like there were some people who I could tell did not believe in me, but those statistics I didn't learn until maybe around the time I was researching to do my TED Talk, when I was like, wow, I didn't know that fewer than 3% of youth who experience foster care will obtain a college degree. Like, I didn't know that. Or the statistic around, if you are a teen mom, the likelihood that you will, marry the father of your child. Like, I just did not know those things, but I could feel people's judgment. I remember when I was young and became a teen mom, even though I was an A-B student, there were people who were like, well, aren't you just going to drop out of high school? Like, you can't go to college now. Like, don't you just want to join the military or something? Or so I could feel people's lack of faith in me, but it wasn't connected to, like, oh, they're saying these things because statistically, the outcomes are supposed to be different. But statistics are just information. We don't have to adopt those things as a definition for who we are. It's information of, like, oh, could be that way, but that's not my story. Could be that way, but that's not my destiny. And so we really have to just stay focused on, like, my future does have a lot to do with how I want to design it. There are challenging factors, experiencing poverty, lack of opportunity, racism in this country, that I know can contribute to someone not moving ahead as quickly as they may want to. But we do have some decision making and some control. And so even though I was a teen mom and experienced abuse and experienced homelessness and experienced the foster care system and lived in shelters by myself as a child, those experiences built not just resiliency, but also empathy. So when I create policy around housing or policy for youth experiencing foster care, those experiences allow me to see the spaces, the shelters, and, having a curfew, waiting in line to get your meal in a kitchen, getting your clothes out of clothing bank. Also, those experiences remind me of when I first started serving my community. My first civic action was caring for my brothers when my mom could not. My first civic action was volunteering in a shelter, volunteering in a food bank, in a clothing bank, in the kitchen, volunteering at the front office as a child, volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club because I believed in youth in my community and I just needed a place to go during the day, So I have been, again, practicing my commitment to service and education and advocacy and community for a very long time. And a lot of people have also. Sometimes when we think of when we first started serving, we don't think about under our own roof. We try to think of, like, oh, outside my house, this thing I did in community. But if you helped your family because you had a sick family member, if you helped your family because you also had a family member that struggled with a substance use disorder and you just had to do more than a child should ever have to do, you started service at an early age also. So yes, I experienced adversity, but I learned so much about what happens when we stick together as a community. When I didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, I knew I could still volunteer. I could still help somebody. There were things that I could do. So I mean, when I lived in a shelter, I had these responsibilities as a, like, 13, 14, 15-year-old of like making sure, like I would sit in the security booth and make sure the adults were meeting curfew, and like coming inside, I would make sure people were doing their chores. So when people start talking about leadership, and I'm still practicing being a leader, and I'm not trying to reach perfection. But as a child, I was like, oh, you need to like do your chores. It's time to wake up. You got to make your bed. Two adults, you know? So I feel grateful for my experiences. I wish them on no one. I do everything that I can to not repeat those experiences for my family, but I wouldn't be the person that I am. And I love how those experiences also help me to feel just more like down to earth. Like being a senator is an important job. It doesn't make me a more important person. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, any of us can lose it all and be back in those circumstances or situations. So those situations keep me humble. I'm not better than anyone else. I'm in a position of power, and I want to help people who are having experiences like I have had in the past, or experiences like I could never relate to be able to overcome. So it's a privilege and an honor, but our stories are so beautiful and just don't dictate what our future will be. They're just an option of what our future can be. And we have to decide, nah, that's not for me. I got something else ahead.
That's so great. And it really seems like you just have a lot of gratitude for the position you're in, but you understand the responsibility of it. And I think you serve as an example for people, like you said, that even though the stereotypes and, the statistics can say your path should look one way, that it's okay if your path looks different and you can still end up where you want to. And so I think for many folks, like you did go to school, you ended up getting the degree and stuff, defying all the odds. But even people that don't end up, going that traditional route can still be very successful and can still potentially be in a position you're in. And it's really about them just kind of having accountability of the self. You knew that you were a leader early on, and that's how you embodied that every single day. And so, yeah, I really encourage all of our listeners to take Senator Noble's advice to heart, because clearly it's paid off for her and she's doing very well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, believe in yourself, believe in your story, believe in every experience that you are going through. Seek those mentors, like I said, your peer mentors, older mentors, younger mentors, but never underestimate your story and your strength and like what you have the power to do, for sure.
Thank you so much. I just feel like those experiences that you shared are so valuable. And it's amazing that you knew early on, you just had this inner knowing that God had a greater purpose over your life and that you weren't going to just lay down and give up. And, before you mentioned when you were beefing with people, they would make fun of you and say, oh, that's why you're in the shelter. And, you also brought up being a teen mom and how people projected their own perceptions on what you were capable of doing onto you. And I was wondering if you could speak to navigating that adversity and how you didn't let guilt and shame consume you when people projected those horrible things onto you.
hmm Earlier, you all asked a question of like if I could notice there was something different about my life. And, you know, to give further example, when I was younger, my mom would offer my brothers and I weed or alcohol. I mean, again, as kid, I moved to Washington State at 19. So all these, and I entered foster care at 14 or 15. So these experiences were all before I was 14 or 15. And she would, offer us drugs and alcohol, and I would be like, no. And my brothers are like, yeah, this is cool. And I'm like, no. And my family would be like, oh, you just think you're better than us? Oh, you just try to act so bougie. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure you should not be asking kids to use drugs and alcohol is what it is, but your family will play you or like, oh, you think because you went to college, you're better. No, I just have a different goal. And actually it's making me better. I'm not trying to be better than you, but it's making me better and like better prepared for my future. So I always knew that by me rejecting some of the experiences and mindsets that were presented to me, um, I knew that I was different, but I also, I would beef with people like this one guy in particular. Oh my gosh, we were in the auditorium at my high school and it was kind of quiet. Like we're all there. It was probably my senior year, or I don't I don't know if it was my senior. It was at some no, I don't think it was my senior, but it was at some point my whole class, like the class of 2000 was in this auditorium for something that we were practicing or doing. And I got into it with this guy, and bless his heart, because he passed away within the last like 5 years. But I remember he very loudly said, well, that's why you live in a shelter. And he was heavy set, right? And this is high school. So he said that, and everybody was like, oh, laughing or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I live in a shelter because your fat ass ate my house. And everybody went crazy. And that was probably the last time anybody ever said a shelter joke to me ever. Like that probably
You
wrapped
shut it down. You shut it down. And you had to. That's so wild.
You
you
said what
know?
you said at the end of the day.
So it's like, and again, but I had the type of mentality of like, I live in a shelter, but I don't feel less than, I don't feel like, I tried to hide it a little bit, but then eventually I was dating this guy in ninth grade. I was like, I'm just not hiding this. Yo, I live in a shelter. So if you want to date me, you just got to come to the shelter. And he was also a Christian. So he would come to church with me at the shelter. He would come onto the shelter and visit me. Like we dated for, probably a year, 2 years or whatever until my dad got custody of us for a short period of time in between like my foster homes. But um, I just, it's like it is what it is. And I just have to not worry about what people are thinking or saying. But it definitely is um, challenging for people to have those projections. But yeah, I'm like, I just knew like it's okay. Like I'm gonna be fine. I can't back down from or like crawl into a shell because people feel this way about maybe how they would think about themselves in this situation. So I was focused as a kid and focused as an adult. So people can say and do whatever they want, but it doesn't make you less of a person if you have those experiences.
Exactly. The light is not on you, it's in you, and you knew that early on. And I think, first of all, I think that's so funny, your clap back. Definitely been there, and I can really relate to you in some ways. Remember when I was in high school, and I didn't live in the nicest apartment complex. It was considered one of the most rundown ones in the town, and I was I was walking home, and one of my peers was like, "Oh, you live there? Like you live in that?" And I just remember being like, why do you have to point that out? But, I love that you just owned it. And you're like, yeah, these are my circumstances and it is what it is. And I know that one day, like, check back in 10, 20 years and we're going to
Right.
see.
And it's
Exactly.
funny. I'm like, we going on a date at the shelter. Let's go. Like you just gotta make the best of your circumstances. Like, do you like deer meat? Because they just feed us deer meat at this shelter. Like, we don't got no ground beef. Just we take what we can get. You like homily? Like, I don't know. We just get all type of random cangas. So you definitely just have to like suck it up. And I remember like there were a couple of guys. They lived in the suburbs. And again, I was experiencing foster care. I lived in shelters. I liked them. And I remember their moms would not let them date me. Both of them are like serving jail time right now, but they just were like, not her. She lives in it. And so I'm just, again, for anyone listening, you have to understand that this moment will pass. Like you can't get stuck in this is what I'm experiencing because it is so hard to imagine where you can end up. I'm grateful I had a really good imagination and a really good vision. So again, I could see where I was going and I think that was really critical, but I never felt like giving up. But it is laughable to be like right now, if you're a teenager listening or a young person, there's someone who just feels like you're not good enough. And the way that you can flip your life, right? Now, if you're making poor decisions or you're doing something that is causing them to think that way, that's a little bit different. But for someone just to say, like, oh, because you're a teen mom, oh, because you're unhoused, oh, because you're experiencing foster care, oh, because you don't have a lot of money right now, like, you know what I'm saying? Like you flip that Dotson, you get your education, get that job that you've been wanting, and don't do it for other people. I definitely didn't do it for other people, but it is just amazing to sit here today and know that I'm creating policy to help people navigate the situations that I was in when there were so many people who just felt like they should give up on me and I should give up on myself. So you just got to keep going. It's okay. There's so much and my one of my favorite sayings is like the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come and you just got to tell yourself that. And that is just what I believe. So I feel grateful and I share my story because I don't feel embarrassed about those things. Like I love being able to say like listen, if you want to date me, you're gonna have to come up to the shelter. This is where I live. We're gonna have to hang out here. So make the best of your situation.
That is so important. And, like you said, you just have to see the silver lining, even if it feels like this is going to be my life for the rest of my life. Like, you just can't let that get you down. And it's so funny, like you had said, those people that had been kind of dismissing you and overlooking you and not seeing all that you were, look at where they're at for being critical and not focusing on themselves. And so don't do it out of spite, do it for you, like you said. And so, yeah, I love that.
Yep.
Thank you. It's wonderful that you were able to kind of transmute that energy and take your pain and build a beautiful life for yourself. And you are a proud mother of 4 children. And we were wondering if you could discuss navigating motherhood with your career, and if you could also share how your past experiences in childhood inform your values and your parenting style today.
hmm Yeah, definitely. The work that I do is for my community, but my first and most important community are the young people that I've birthed and I'm raising and nurturing. Like our family is our community. It's where I want to make sure I'm outside of myself. Like I want to give to myself and build myself up first. And then I want to make sure that my family is taken care of before I can go outside this house. And I preach this to my kids too. You can't go outside this house and say you want to help your friends, help your, girlfriend or boyfriend, help someone out. And then you come and you're not being kind to your sibling, and thank goodness my kids are kind kids. I don't tolerate things like, s- you know, not just sibling rivalry, but like sibling bullying and stuff. It's like, you're being hypocritical if you will come here and not share with your brother or sister, but then go out there and someone's like, can you help me? Can you give me something? And you're like, yeah, I'm willing to. So right here is where I want to be a good role model. Right here, if anybody else sees me as a leader or an influence or a mentor, I want that for my kids first. I want my kids to be able to say, like, I can see and appreciate what my mom is doing. And especially as it relates to being an executive and being an elected official, I don't want my friends to be like, gosh, she's just always working. She's never here. Now, the key is balance, boundaries, and flexibility. I'm not going to make it to everything. I've been married and divorced twice, and I am exactly where I want to be. My kids are older, and being a single parent is not easy. It's where I want to be right now. I just don't want to be in a relationship right now. But it comes with some sacrifices, right? Like, I'm not going to make it to every event for multiple kids. I'm like, you all, come on. And your kids will feel disappointed. That is a healthy feeling. It's okay. I tell my kids all the time, I will disappoint you. That is an okay way for you to feel. People will disappoint you. And I believe in my household and with my family, this is where I teach them how to handle that. Okay, you feel disappointed that someone that I couldn't do something, that your sibling couldn't do something. So, how do you respond? And also, how do I respond? I did not mean to disappoint you, so I'm sorry I could not be there. Or sometimes it's not about being sorry. I can't do them both. I have something on my calendar. You're asking me to do something after the fact. I already have a commitment. I'm not doing that. There's not an apology associated with it. It is a clear boundary of like, I'm prioritizing this thing that is already a commitment. I'm sure what you have is important to you, but it wasn't important enough for you to tell me earlier than now. So you have to figure that out. So it's like, this is a community where I want to like brainstorm and problem solve and figure things out. I want to teach my kids empathy and resilience and service. And naturally they get to see me, but we talk about these things. I remember my daughter for her senior night, she was a cheerleader for a long time. Her senior night, when they announced her, I had not heard these things before, but when they were announcing her, they're like, Alea Franklin, and she wants to major in political science and one day be an elected official. Like, what?
You're
Okay.
like, why am I just discovering this?
Right. Because that's how kids do you. They're full of surprises. I have so many stories about my son this summer and all the surprises, but it isn't like that's what I want. It is important to me if somebody outside of my household says, like, oh, I admire you, I'm gonna be like you. But it is like heart wrenching and heart feeling to hear my daughter, a teenager, say that she would want to walk in my footsteps. I'm not pressuring her to do that. I didn't even know that. But it made me feel like there's something that I'm doing right about the way that I'm presenting this work that makes her feel like I can do that. Because easily there are parents who are thinking they're creating generational wealth. Got this business, I'm gonna pass it down. Their kid is like, I'm not doing that business. I got this career, I want to pass it down. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do nothing that you're doing. So easily your kids can just, and it's not a negative thing, but because our children are their own people. So easily they should want to do a plethora of things that have nothing to do with the idea we have for them. But for a mother and for a teen daughter to not be at a place where she's like, nah, bro, I want to be nothing like, is such an honor. So again, everything that I've gone through, I just try to, if it was negative, not repeat it for my kids. And also recognize my kids do need to experience adversity as well. Life is not filled with people just being there for you. People will not be there for you sometimes. People, like I said, will disappoint you. So I tell my kids one of my main goals for them was to create safety and stability. I didn't have a goal of having a mansion. I had a goal of having a home that was consistent and stable, and my kids didn't move to a different school every single year or move to multiple states in one school year. My kids have grown up in this community, have grown up in this neighborhood, have grown up in the same school district. My older two, when we first moved to this area, we moved to University Place, but it was like the Tacoma Public Schools part of University Place. And this was again over 20 years ago. Tacoma schools did not have the reputation it has now. And so I put them in private school. And then when we moved to Fircrest, which was the part of Fircrest that was University Place schools, then my kids have all gone to public school. But my goal is stability. You know, my goal is to try to help my kids to be able to pursue their college and careers and be debt free, and so I spend a lot of money to make sure that they can go to college, or trying to, we started a college fund for Reese, but like those are my goals for my kids. And I tell them, and I sacrifice that. I have like a older paid off car that I would much rather maintain instead of getting a luxury vehicle, because I know that I can pay over $300 for braces. So I want for my kids so many of the things that I didn't have, but basic stuff, not just materialistic stuff. I had the poorest oral health care as a kid. I was getting root canals when I went into foster care. They were like, "Oh my gosh, when's the last time you went to the dentist?" I had to get a root canal one of my earlier dental visits. My kids, so them having regular dental appointments, they'll never know how meaningful that is for me. Them having regular health care, them having a parent that's here and available, them being able to open their front door at the sound of a knock and know that no one is going to bust in to try to attack your family. Those are my goals for my kids. So I want to make sure that, what I get to teach them is to be gracious with each other first, because that's how you can be gracious to people outside, to hold each other accountable, even when it is difficult, and to hold ourselves accountable, because those are the types of skills that you will need when you leave out the house. And I want them to also recognize how powerful they are. I love that each of my kids seem to have like a voice for advocacy and social justice. And if they see something, they will say something. And those are the types of things that I want them to have. And they're kind, they are dependable, they show up when they need to show up. Those are the things that are important for me as a parent. I'm not trying to strike it rich or big, or again, give them a big house. I'm like, no, a mansion wasn't my goal. Stability was. And you being able to say you grew up in this community, not like, well, where did I live the greatest amount of years and I'll call that home. My kids know where home is. They literally know where their physical home is, and they know that their community is their home. So I just have tried to navigate with love and creating opportunities and demonstrating the importance of serving here first and then serving outside of here, even in the midst of their own hardships. And the last thing I will add is, all the time, I feel like with every generation, we do I had to walk 2 miles to school. You'll never know how hard it is. And so I have to remind myself, just because their trauma doesn't mirror my trauma, they still will have their own negative experiences. And even with me trying to do my best as a parent, they still will have their stories of how I failed them and disappointment. And, my story might have been, well, my mom was not home because she was doing drugs, but they do have their own feelings of like, I had to wait outside for you to pick me up and you were late and I was the last one. And that year you were not the room mom. Like they have their own things. I'm like, oh, and I try to balance like that's laughable and also I respect that. I'm sorry you feel that way. But I just because I had such extreme childhood trauma, I just also have to be very careful not to minimize their experiences that will absolutely impact them as they're growing into adults.
Everything you said is so remarkable, and there's seriously so much there. So I won't dive into every aspect, but it's just so beautiful to see the foundation you're laying for your children, and that, even with all that childhood trauma that you've had, that you've been able to have enough self awareness to address that and not project that out onto your own children, and that you recognize they still are going to feel that you're not maybe showing up in the way that they'd like, but they have so much more than you had even been given with. So just to be able to do that, it's truly amazing what you've done. And to be a single mom and you're still you having an amazing thriving career, and you're still showing up for your kids when you can, and you're managing their expectations. Like, I think that's so important for you to be an example for other single moms out there, and other just parents that have so much going on and feel like there's too many competing responsibilities, I can't fill them all in. That, you know as people, we can't do it all, right? And so it's okay, and have some grace for yourself, and it sounds like you do. And your kids are very blessed to have you. Like, even just talking to you in this short amount of time, I can see why your daughter would want to follow in your footsteps, and you're already laying that legacy for them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had any advice for single mothers who are juggling so much, because you really went into it and how you have to level those expectations and say, hey, I cannot do it all. I'm just one person and I love you so much, but this is just the reality. So, do you have any words of inspiration for single mothers out there?
Yeah, well, I think moms are great, right? Moms are so talented because we have to serve as coaches and financial advisors and referees and managers and nurturers. So I have an incredible respect for moms. I think also there's this very interesting thing as someone that identifies as a woman, and I grew up in the South. I grew up in an environment that really centered you need to be chosen and be a wife. And especially when I was a teen mom, it's like, are y'all going to get married? And like, if you have a kid, you need to get married. And I mean, I got married for the first time at 19. So as I talked about my practice, I think I've also been trying to practice centering myself and decentering a partner and a male and a relationship. And, it has less, especially like with relationships that have ended. One thing that I did do early on as a single mom is accepted the fact that there are two parents of children and everyone is 100% responsible for those children, but I can't control and I'm also not responsible for another adult. So regardless of how another adult, the other parent shows up or doesn't show up, that is not for me to control or worry about. What I need to do is 100% show up for my kids. And I think I'm proud of myself for not focusing on like this person's not doing, this person's not doing. I left my first marriage as a single mom of 4 kids with no money in the bank, no job, but I had to go. And they wouldn't go. So I left the house and most of the things in it and moved out with my 4 kids. And that was in 2012. That same year, I got offered, and I was a stay at home mom at that time. That same year in 2012, I got offered a teaching position. And so I went back to teaching. Within a couple of years, I ran for school board and was elected to the school board. Um, Within a year or so of that, I was offered the CEO position of Tacoma Urban League, successfully ran that organization, ran for state senate, co-founded Black Future Co-op Fund, have graduated 3 of my 4 kids, independently started a college fund for my child. My daughter does get to benefit. She's in college at Central, does get to benefit from like some GI Bill, but I pay thousands of dollars to contribute. So she does not have any debt. And so when I think about even worrying about someone else entering my life, if I can do all of that on my own, like I make it a point to go on a trip every single month somewhere. I work really hard. I want to go somewhere. I don't care if it's Portland. I don't care if it's Paris. I'm getting up out of here. And if I can do that on my own, anyone that comes into my life or anyone that needs to be in my orbit can only contribute on top of that. And I'm not saying financially, but it's like Tracy Ellis Ross said it best. I'm very high maintenance, very high standards, and can take care of all of my maintenance on my own. So, like, what are you here doing? So I just think if I can do this incredible job for my kids, because my kids live in a healthy, safe environment. I'm not responsible for what another parent or other family members do or don't do. I 100% have a job to do. So I think as a single parent, you really got to focus on yourself and your priorities. And I wanted to create that safety and stability also includes who is in and out of my life, right? And I want a home that feels like a home for my kids. So I feel proud of myself when I look back and I'm just like, just 13 years ago, I left without a dime and was given a hard time of like, oh, you're leaving? Well, I'm not giving you anything. Oh, okay. And to sit here now as a state senator and a nonprofit executive, have graduated my kids. And when I say graduated, I've served on the school board and handed all of my children their diploma on a stage because I still serve on the school board. So like, nah, there ain't nothing negative about me being a single mom. Because even if I had a partner, you still can't do it all. So I'm just like, thank God I feel good. I feel proud and productive. I feel um, supported by people around me. And I'm an excellent person. I'm an excellent mom who was single.
It looks like you had to let go of those, past relationships to get where you are today too. It's like you're doing so well independently. And like you said, why would I need to have someone else, like a partner in my life, a relationship at the center when I have so much going on, and what is that person going to bring? And it's really about that value. And so if they're not enhancing your life, then there's no need for it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. You
Yeah.
encourage women to prioritize ourselves and not, romance. Like we've been told, it's, oh, your life's incomplete without a partner, or you need to always, be searching for love. And it's like, do I though? Like I'm doing so much. I'm literally changing lives in my career. So yeah, and you're being a
That's
fabulous mom.
That's the piece. You're right. My independence allowed me to level up because how I also learned to be a partner and what I learned about marriage was not centering myself and centering my partner. And I'm here to help and support, and I'm here to make sure you are prepared and you're your best self while I'm home taking care of these kids. And thank goodness along the way, I still like was in college and doing things and like working on things in the community and still building my resume in ways that I didn't, but I didn't feel like I have to have a job. Like my home was my priority, but in my independence, I got to make myself my priority. And like the level up is insane because I would have been so focused on trying to help this other person achieve. And I think and the options are not be single or be in a relationship because I think the healthy way to be in a relationship is to do the same thing. We both get to independently level up, but sometimes in a relationship it's like I got to hold you back or I feel like you're holding me back or I can if you don't. And it's like the healthy way is can you both independently have your friends, reach your goals, and you find your common ground too, the things that you want to do together. But relationship is not about oh, you can't do this thing because I didn't give you permission. I don't get to have my own bank account. I can't own my own, I can't travel by that's not relationship, that's control. So even if you want to choose partnership, you still should be able to do those things. I just did not learn relationship and partnership in that way. And so my independence was necessary for me. And I needed this first. And that's what I tell my kids. Please, if you can, wait until you decide that you want to be in a like forever relationship. Explore your independence first. Learn how to be strong by yourself. Because I think society tells us, like, you got to have a man, you got to have a woman, you got to have a partner, you got to have somebody. And I get the economy is also making us feel like that. Like, you got to have somebody help you, you got to have some
That's
roommates.
the rent is very high. So people want to split bills.
So I'm like, but learn how to do it in a way that is healthy, that still gives you your own independence, that we're not so reliant on someone who can like pull the carpet up under us. So I needed this. And that's why I said I'm good. I'm not looking for anything, now don't get me wrong, I got some people, I see some people,
You're still dating, and that is good. You
yeah.
should.
but um my life does not center that, and I feel really good. So we shouldn't feel so negative about single moms or just moms, or what we can contribute. No, you're a parent who is independent, and you have a job that you 100% need to show up to do as best as you can.
You put it so perfectly. And everyone should have a level of independence in any relationship, friendships, in romantic relationships, just in our lives. We should not be codependent with each other. And so you needed that exploration phase to be able to know that.
Yeah, especially as someone who had children early, and like I took care of my siblings, so I was
Yeah.
always just like,
Caretaker role. Like that was probably how you felt.
Yeah.
This is my value in the world. I have to make sure everyone else is okay before me.
yeah. Now my kids would be like, "Wait, you going out of town tomorrow?" Yeah,
Oh,
child. Listen,
and you said good luck. Take care of yourself.
I'm like,
You
"Oh,
said
y'all are grown adults. What do you mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
Goodbye."
Yeah, yeah.
you said Paris or Portland, period. You said Paris or
That's
Portland. I'm
Brad.
going somewhere.
Brad always talks about this on the pod, but he loves traveling too. So that's so funny when you said that. I was like, that is so him.
It's the great escape because when you're on a vacation, it's like you can't do anything. Like if someone calls you or, someone needs something, and like, I'm gone, sorry. So I feel like it's the perfect way, at least for me, to unplug and to be like, okay, I'm thousands of miles away from my responsibilities. Let me just focus on life and be present.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Exactly. And I love that those words of wisdoms that you gave, for single mothers and for women to find their own independence. And it's okay to, get good with yourself and play the field. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you still got your stuff going for you. So,
well, and it's so cute because my second husband, marriage did not work for us, but it's been 13 years. We were married for 4 years, and we still see each other. And like, there are also so many beautiful ways to do that. Because again, I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure of like, you got to get married, you got to lock it in. And it's like, I could feel like there was something about that was, I'm a Sagittarius. So the necessity for my independence has always been present. And I'm like, I like having companionship, but it has to show up in the right way. So it's actually very funny because my second husband and I just continue to see each other, and I'm like, I told you, not being married is, we just feel more free. We're not stuck to what people have told us has to happen. You have to do this as a husband, you have to do this as a wife, and it's like, no, or we can just see each other when we want to and let all that stuff go. And look at us, we're okay.
I love that. I'm a Sagittarius too. Shout out to the Sagittarius.
That's why we be on the road. Miss y'all, we on an adventure.
We be independent. We be traveling. We need that freedom. We can't be held down. So maybe
And
for
that's
the
why you
right
always like
person.
to have the last word too. That's very on brand for you.
100%.
Brad, yep, Brad is just like that. So that is so funny. Well, this has been amazing. We talked to you for so much longer than we had planned to, but I loved it all. So, getting to our last question, this is a question that we ask all of our guests, and it's really just an opportunity for you to elaborate more about how your identity has informed who you are and your relationship to your Blackness, because there's so much diversity within our community, and we all have different meanings with what it means to be Black. And so, our question is, what does Blackness mean to you?
Yeah, well, Blackness definitely means resiliency and joy, creativity, and innovation. Blackness means legacy and being a good ancestor. And when I think about just how great it is to be Black, I feel very proud. There's so much pride in being Black and being a Black woman. And I think that our culture is rooted in grace and strength. Also, for me, as my work has demonstrated, Blackness means responsibility. It means I need to be a good representative of my community, supporter of my community, voice for my community. And I've talked about wanting to be a good ancestor. I think being Black is deeply rooted in honoring those who came before me. I just feel like there's like a respect on like, I'm not going to call former Senator Rosa Franklin. No, former Senator Rosa Franklin. I'm not going to call the Black woman who I know has a PhD by her first or last name. No, it's doctor. Like there is a respect and honor of the work, of the journey, and of the legacy of the individuals in our community. And that is how I would describe Blackness to me.
I love it. Yeah, and it's just so beautiful the way that you encapsulate all that you've done, and you also are paying homage to the ancestors, like you said. They've been guiding you. Your life has been anointed. It's very clear that you're meant to be where you are, and I think your circumstance prepared you for these opportunities today, and you're meant to be in this position. So it's just fantastic. You're really a public servant too. We had a couple other politicians on the podcast this season, which was our first time having folks in that field. And so it was really cool just to hear about how, you've all gotten to where you are and that you've kept your integrity at the center. Because I know like in that field, you can feel like you need to always please so many different people and you have your constituents saying one thing about you, but you just know who you are. And it seems like you're very unapologetic with that. And so, yeah, please continue to keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today and just being authentic and being raw and showing your personality and who you are. I feel like that's so important because a lot of, people in the public eye feel like they have to put on this polished presentation all the time and they can't, talk the way they want to talk. They can't say, oh, I want to clap back right now. Like, I just love how you keep it real through and through. And so I really appreciate that. And we need to see more of that. We need to see more people.
Yes.
Like you stepping up and just maintaining your authenticity and, your realness, no matter who's watching, no matter who's in the building. So I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you. And I just thank both of you for having me on your podcast, for allowing me to share a little bit about my journey. And I feel like I want to close by letting folks know I have a relationship with my mom. I mean, she's still in and out of being clean in her battles with her substance use disorder, but also a realization that I came to, which people struggle sometimes with when they're dealing with someone that has an addiction, is it is also their journey and you can't control them. We can't rush it. We can't give ultimatums or force them. We can create boundaries, right? This is what I'm willing to do and not do, but we have to let people be on their own journey. But I do have a relationship with my mom. We took her on family vacation last year. And when I started session earlier this year, she came and stayed with me because this was the first time my daughter was gone to college and my son works a lot. And so I was like, wow, there's no one to really be here with my 13-year-old if I'm having to work a little bit later. So it was good to have her come and help me to kick off session and get into a routine. But, for everyone listening, again, just remember, we are not the statistics that people can list off for us. We are not our hardships. We are more than those obstacles, more than the barriers, and the best is yet to come. So get out there, take action, help to build community, help to support other people, invest in young people, and continue to practice resiliency.
You're amazing. Thank you so much. And we really hope to stay in community with you. It's something that we want to do with all of our guests. And so we hope there's an opportunity for us to connect in person at some point, get together, see you maybe at some community events or something in the future. But yeah, thank you so much again and hope that you have a great weekend and Friday.
You're welcome. Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Keep
Bye.
in touch. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. We deeply appreciate your support as we work to uplift the Black community and explore our unique experiences within the Black diaspora on Identity Unboxed.
Authenticity is your guide to cast an impact on the world that you will be proud of. Signing off with pride, Tiana
and Brad.
Thank you so much.